And I had no title.
10
I had to take
o'clock.
care of that.
And we're gonna start this work session talking about utilization of space in the facilities that we currently have. So let's start off with Chris Eskel, who is here with us, and we're going to give everybody
Hi, Bart.
approximately
How are you?
3 to 4
Nice
minutes
outfit.
to talk about what they see and what they feel when it comes to space and space management for the county. So, Chris.
Okay, so, hey, good morning, everyone. Bart, you're sitting behind me, huh? Okay, so we have been at our current location. I've been at the health department 15 years this month. We have been there at that location, I think 21 years, we have to ask for sure. The space that we're currently in works very well. When we have clinics, it's a shared space, as you know, with the fire department, because you have an entrance and then you have an exit. So when we have H1N1 and COVID clinics, they could come in the front door and then they could go out the back door. They didn't have to swim back upstream and fight traffic. And that's one of the things that we definitely need is an entrance and an exit for big clinics. We have a shared expense of a generator. That was a shared expense for purchase because we have to have vaccine storage units, both a refrigerator and a freezer connected to backup generator power. Because we have thousands and thousands of dollars in vaccine at our location. The generator has kicked on a couple different times, and we have had to utilize that backup power. And usually, when the generator kicks on, the fire department would call me and say, "Hey, the generator kicked on. Well, we don't know if you need to go check your supply or whatever." Space-wise, we have learned through the pandemic, it's very important for each one of us to have our own offices with the doors that close, not only for privacy when we're doing communicable disease follow-ups, but during the pandemic, so we could all work and not have to have a mask on and decrease, disease spread as well. I didn't bring like measurements, but WIMI has measured it. I think it's 3,800 square feet. I don't know. We'd have to ask him for sure. Darren, you might have it.
You sent
I
us
think
an
it's like
email one
3,800 square
time
feet. I don't
that,
know.
said it was 4,800 square
Okay.
feet when you counted the office that the current fire chief occupied in
Okay.
that building, and also a couple of rooms in the basement, which have no handicap access
Right. It's
to,
just
so it
storage.
would be just dead storage.
Yeah.
So do we
and
know-
we utilize that storage space for old records because we have to keep them.
Do you know what your current space is? Well, that'd probably be, what, a couple thousand then if you.
No, I think what Steve measured a year ago was correct. You'd have to ask him again.
Oh, yeah.
But the space, I mean, it's nice to have a conference room. We use it for our emergency operations center. We use it during the pandemic. That's our break room. That's our meeting room. We have monthly meetings in there for emergency preparedness for community partners because we're a central location and usually we don't have to fight for space. I don't know what else you want me to say. I know there's some things that we need to update. I mean, I'm not even, we need a 2080 agreement. Obviously, we need to update the 2 windows that face north. In the 2 front offices, those are like original windows and they're like nothing but a wind tunnel in the winter. We would need new carpet at some time because that's original carpet that has been done when they did the original remodel. The space works great. The parking lot works great. The county paid for that upgrade.
Do you remember when that was done?
I would have to look, but I can get you that.
Wasn't it
information.
around 2010-ish?
Probably 2010. I didn't bring any of that with me. So,
That's fine.
but yeah, I mean, we could look. It was like $80,000. The other thing about the parking lot is I have to make a comment is like when we handed out test kits and stuff, again, it's like you can drive in and you can drive out. So that is so important with a space like that. People don't realize how important that is, but it truly is important because I stood outside one Sunday afternoon, handed out test kits. I just drove right up, handed them out, and out they went. So there was a few people that came in the wrong way. But you
That's
have
always-
that.
That's normal.
You have that. You
There's
have that.
people that drive the wrong way around the square every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. So that's kind of it. The space has worked very well for the time that we've been there. We do have a radio and antenna placed on the top of the building, and the city administrator, that was fine. It's for our HON alerts and our Region 5 state radio. Bart could probably talk about that. I don't know nothing about radios except they're supposed to work.
Okay,
That's it in a nutshell.
that's what we wanted, was in a nutshell.
Okay.
So.
Yep, you're welcome.
Bart, you're here. Do you have space concerns, or I know that you have space concerns at your building right now, and you've come to us and asked about building a new facility out to the south of the law center. Can you elaborate more, because you looked into it a little bit farther?
Yeah, we're kind of at a standstill until we know that it can be funded. But basically, yeah, with our evidence, our normal storage, we want to get our lab out of the main building. You know,
Also lab would be there.
yes, some evidentiary stuff that doesn't need to be within our actual building, you know, picking up through our air handling system, you know, stuff like that. We want to get any weapons cleaning type of stuff out of that building, because that's a certain chemical and stuff like that. Main thing is the storage and the temperature controlled issue. With the other, I mean, we have a cold storage, and it's very limited, you know, on what you can put in there.
That would be that existing building.
Yes.
It's to the south.
Yes, and we were looking to house some of our equipment, trailers, maybe a couple of our vehicles that don't normally get used every day. That would be in there, but we would want it temperature controlled, especially in the winter time.
Okay.
But those are the things we were looking at, and adding. We were looking at a spot right in front of the impound, which would take out the front fence, but the fence would integrate to it on either end, and kind of where it was accessible, easily accessible. It wasn't go through a gate and then go to a walk-in door at a building, go through a certain section, unlock another door before you can get anything out. Because the existing building, which is very limited, kind of almost like a dirt floor, the first section, the city kind of stores certain things, and to get to ours, we have to go through theirs to unlock another door. So, and we can do a walkthrough at some point, but I can show you the limited space that we're doing. But that's the idea we had to keep going at, you know, in the future at the law center. I mean, basically we have a structure that we've maintained for the last 22 years, and we've done some major improvements, you know, and replace things. And we want that building to exist for another 30, 50 years or whatever. Yeah. So, and moving forward in the future, not, you know, where it's going to be. So.
Right. And there'll be security cameras and that kind of stuff that you'll need to put into that facility, because there are secure things that you need to keep in it that you'll have to keep track of.
Currently our camera system, I think we have 63 cameras out.
Yeah.
That's within the jail, around the law center, back in the impound lot.
Right, but you'll need a couple around that particular building because of the fact that you're going to move evidence from one into another. And I would think you'd want some either inside or outside that building to see who travels in or out.
Yes, and we've had discussions with that too. It's actually an off branch of Motorola with a camera system and how it's stored. And you know, we have an issue where it's only kept like 14 days now.
Oh,
which we're looking at further storage and that type of thing, and more upgraded camera system, I guess.
Yeah.
Which would, some of them would eliminate probably that 63 because they could cover a larger area.
Have you looked into whether cloud storage for that kind of
Yep.
take could be
Yep.
feasible?
And that was, yeah, that was the discussion with the three we talked to
Mhm.
upgrade that system. Because, yeah, obviously a server gets
Oh, yeah.
just as expensive. And,
Yeah, and
and
keep
then
having
there's,
to upgrade it
yeah,
over time
Yes.
because the server only holds so much, even
Yeah.
though you can get 5 terabyte servers now.
right.
And that's a ton.
Well, with that kind of storage, as far as cloud too, if we do this thing with the state where they come down and do the audit, they might have some good ideas for you, or at least be another resource for you.
You're right. You're right. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts there, and it's not only the storage, but you know, to keep our whole camera system going, there's other things that we have as far as electronic stuff, but or technology that, yeah, we have to keep moving on, but getting back to the storage, that's what we were kind of looking at. It probably should have been done years ago that we had more of a control, but there's certain things, you know, that are in that building that probably shouldn't, that aren't healthy for our, you know, our people working there
chemicals.
or our inmates that sit there every day. So, you know, we have 13 air handlers on the roof, and we don't want any of them picking up any chemical or any, you know, certain things. So
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Is anybody online?
Nope. Nobody's joined that way.
Tom, do you have any space
No.
requirements? Or
Okay.
questions? Okay.
All right.
Yeah, anytime you guys want to come over, because we have a ton of stuff that we have to have for CCNC and, you know, and I will say during the pandemic, when we got all of the shipments of all of the supplies, it all had to be climate controlled and secure. So that's not everyday business, but that is part of what public health does. So that's a huge issue as well. We had syringes and alcohol pads running out of our ears for a while when they ship, you know, 800 doses or 600 doses, and then they send all of that push pack with all of that stuff. So it's tough to try to navigate that. We still order vaccine for Summit Pharmacy and for the hospital, but now we're able to divert the push packs to those locations, so we don't have to handle that. So it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, just FYI. So.
All right. So one thing that we've spoken about quite a little bit is the court records that are here in the basement, and what we could do to move them off site so we can better utilize this building right here. Requirements for a facility that those could go to have to be handicap accessible. They can't go to a basement that doesn't have an elevator or access that way in either public health or out at 304 South Maple with DHS.
And that's probably, as we looked at buildings, because, you know, we started when you were thinking you needed to move like 18 months ago or whatever, and we looked at, we tried for a long time to look at Lincoln School, and
Well, we
the
looked
school
at that.
wasn't,
We also
wasn't
looked at,
interested in that. I had a conversation with Family Video, and all they wanted us to do was rent for $9,000 a month, and I'm like, no, thank you. And then a year later, they called me, are you interested now? And I said, well, how about if you sell it? And they didn't want to sell it. So this hasn't just happened this has been going on for years, literally. And then we looked at, as you're familiar, the old Iowa State Bank and the old Farm Bureau building. But again, it all comes down to handicapped accessibility. And by the time you put an elevator in some of these older buildings, it's a huge expense.
well, and with the current public health office being a jail at one time, you're going to run into way more structural steel that you'd have to cut through and a higher expense for trying to retrofit an elevator into that building in order to be able to use the downstairs space. Other than for just dead storage for your office.
Right, and we just have one room down there. The rest of it's all fire department use.
Right, but it's going to be park and rec use, or it's going to be whatever the city
Yeah.
deems it to be after that point.
I think in an ideal world, it'd be nice if we could get an agreement with the city, but we've asked, and
Yeah,
I don't know if you have a magic wand. You mentioned your Board of Health might. That'd be great.
I don't know if I have a magic wand or not, but I mean, we've been there for over 20 years and it's always been, certain things have been shared expense. It's not been an issue. Physicians change, city administrators,
yeah,
elected
it
officials.
seems that is an issue now with shared expenses. And we've run into that over at the law center and found that the city doesn't want to participate in some of the things that they had in the past because of not being brought to their attention in quote a timely fashion. And so if it isn't timely, we're not paying. And voluntary payments that they're calling certain things. We haven't had much luck lately with them continuing to contribute what has been asked of different committees for them to contribute. So the relationship with the city, for some reason, has changed in that they feel that the county has not paid for years their fair share, but that's not accurate.
But
Right,
let's,
we do.
But wouldn't you say that's a thing, that's the service agencies?
Right, that's the
Issue.
service
Yeah, let's
agency's
talk
issue.
space.
You know,
So-
I feel we're
But
here
we
today
need to,
talking
we
about
need
Space.
to
space that
talk
we need.
about that.
We do pay, just so you guys all know, we're all on the same page. We do pay 55% of the light bill and gas bill.
sure.
We pay $0 for water. We never have. We get a usage statement that I tried to give to Bart because I didn't know what it was. Because we just started getting that. I'm like, I don't know what this is, Bart. It's just a usage statement on how many gallons of water we use. And I think a lot of times it's about 600 gallons. But we don't pay any water fee, just so everybody
You
knows.
guys probably.
Now,
know.
you're paying that water fee though.
I pay it.
Yeah,
Not at my location.
No, not at your
Not at my
No, but the city has now started
yeah.
charging for water usage at the law center. They're not charging the sewer, correct?
They are not, the sewer is not on there, the way I read the statement. No, it's
Right.
just the water usage, yes.
Right.
Okay, what about space use?
Okay, space, back to the files in the basement. So we need to find some place that is handicap accessible that we can move the files off-site to without having to spend a couple $100,000 for an elevator just to put it in a building somewhere else.
So the
Um,
files in the basement are currently in that room downstairs.
Used to be the old assessor's office downstairs. Some of the files are current use files on a regular basis by an abstractor here in town. Those mainly pertain to property purchases and divorce decrees. There would be enough space here to retain them without causing us a problem. The records that need to be moved to a new location are birth, death, adoption records, all from the mid 1800s through to present day. The court has made the switch that all of their documentation now is online, so we aren't adding anything to those records.
Okay, good.
We are just a storage facility for those records, and because the requirement is that they're never gotten rid of until they're scanned and put online or in a cloud storage situation, they won't, they have to stay at least where they can be accessible. The other thing about that is that the courts across the state of Iowa have been doing some locations for scanning and older records. There are some courthouses that have gotten rid of all of those older records because the courts have taken the time to do that work, but we haven't even thought or begun anything like that here. So
And that's a court issue,
that's a court issue.
which we have no control over.
Right, but we do have the right to be able to move those records off-site if
Right.
they're in an overwhelming manner on what's going on with the storage that we have available to us.
And
Yeah.
it's,
Do you have any idea like how much room you would need? 500 square feet, 1,000 square feet?
I'd have to go down and measure that, but I know we've got a good We've got. a
I
good
would with a building.
40 or, we got a good 40 or 50
In the car.
file cabinets down there that could be moved to another location. And they're a standard sized file cabinet.
Right.
You know, I think they're what, 20 inches wide or 24 inches wide.
Hey, my personal opinion is, why don't we work on scanning the records as opposed to moving the files? It just makes
Well,
no
because the
sense.
expense goes to the court.
Well, here's the
Well,
thing.
is the court supposed to
bad.
do that?
Yes,
Sorry.
they
Then
are.
why don't they do their job?
Why don't we have a meeting with,
Well, it's the state.
Ask
them?
them. It's
I would love to.
let's have a
state.
meeting with them. and
The
talk to
state
them.
pushes everything down to
Well-
the locals and then it becomes an unfunded mandate.
And I
And we
talked,
have to
Yeah, I
do
know
it.
that.
I talked to Pat a little bit about it months ago.
Yeah,
And not just anybody can scan it, because a lot of that's confidential and
Right.
sealed information. So it has to be like an officer of the court or somebody with special.
Credentials.
So why don't we just take the files up to them and just sit them there? Sorry.
Because
well, because
No, I-
the
we
weight of
have to
them,
provide space for the
well,
court
the weight,
system.
the weight of the files are the reason they're down here in the basement.
Of
Because they
course.
used to be stored up on the attic floor and the building couldn't support it.
So Darren, what I'm hearing is there will be no new additions down there.
That's
because
what
they're-
I've been told by the court so far.
That's
All
good
of
to
the,
know.
all of
That's
the
at least a
paperwork
starting
that they do
point.
now is electronic in nature.
Yeah.
Tom,
I know Bart and I talked about this a little bit, but if you're looking at building a building out there for Bart for storage, would it make sense to add on to that? Maybe for records out there?
well, the one estimate that we got from our architect on the basic building that Bart was talking about earlier, and he worked on the design for one over in Muscatine that they just did for their jail, similar to what Bart's asking for. And the total cost of the building was more than $1 million. So that's
That's
one
not-
reason why there's got to be some
And I'm
definite
not
talk
sure
about it.
exactly on that total design. I tried to Google it and it does show like the not design picture, but it doesn't give
Yeah.
any detail. It's quite the building though.
Well, I'm sure they wouldn't want the detail out there.
But the
What
one
it's like
estimate you
underneath.
got, did that include everything or was that just the building? Because your estimate was.
Well,
It was a lot lower, but that was just an
building.
idea from a kind of a local contractor to get us going. Obviously, it's over the threshold of the 140,000,
yeah.
which, and then I would need architect plans and
Mhm.
which I understand that that's probably gonna cost, initial 10 and then up to 30 total, I think, to even get that finalized. But, yeah, and depending on where the bids come in and
Yeah.
how we scale the building that we want.
Yeah. And as we saw yesterday, there were only 2 bids that came in for the restroom project downstairs. And we were fortunate, they were 2 local and semi-local type contractors. But the bids came in, I believe it was $27,000 more than what the architect's estimate was initially, but we added 2 addendums to what we wanted in the contract. And one of those was one that kind of leaves it up in the air as far as the total scope of work. And that's what increased one of the bid items. But, and then of course we added the 2 alternates that we looked at to add into that by addendum and chose those. But overall, that still was a pretty good chunk. Just under, one would have been over 200,000, the other one was just under 190,000. So the difference between the 2 contractors was that. And that's why we chose the one contractor that we did.
So I have a question.
Yeah,
So if, I'm just gonna throw this out. there
Then
so we
I'm
can
gonna
move
talk
forward. No,
after
you
you.
go, Susie. You
If
go.
we are concerned about space and we are concerned about renting from the city where Chris is now, and we bought the First National Bank building, I would propose that we take Chris out there to let her look at the facility with us and try to see if that's something that we can make work. I'm sorry,
No,
Chris,
it
I
doesn't matter where we go. I just know we need certain things.
know, well, and I'll give you all that. I
Yeah.
agree with that. But I just think there's great possibilities out there for somebody. And if we're trying to work on space today, we should think about doing that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad you're here, Bart, to talk, because I think you do might have some storage space that it's good to know if something could go there. Now, do you have space now, or are you talking in the future if you get your building?
Well,
As far as space for records,
Yes,
obviously it would, yeah, it would have to be in that building. Because I don't really have the space down
well,
here.
Okay.
the other problem that we would run into is HIPAA requirements with moving public health into
as long as
That
it's a
other
locked
building.
area, it's fine.
every,
Or were you saying Chris or the records?
well,
talking
you were
records.
talking about records that you may have out in your location that could be brought over there. Wasn't that what the idea was?
Yeah.
And then if public health was to be looked at being moved over there, since they have those types of requirements, the HIPAA requirements, we'd have to
Over
keep
where?
them. Well,
Oh, to the bank. Something
yeah,
like
if
that.
you were, isn't that correct?
Well,
You
we
have-
have- if
you
it's
Yeah,
have-
if we're
locked.
secured, we don't have to worry about it. It's when it gets to be, we can't have like a shared space. I'm just gonna throw it out there
Sure.
so we can move forward.
Sure.
So, if we were to move, yes, I need to look at the building to see what's gonna work. We would have to have water in clinic areas, that's a
Right.
given. We need more than one restroom, that's a
We know that.
given. We need a generator, that's a given. All of these things. So that can have a different conversation, but as far as space goes, you know, the gossip that I've heard is that you want to move Sandy Stever and her group into my department. And it's like, well, if that's the case, we can share space, but it still has to be separated.
Right.
So for her and
And that
for me,
building's conducive for that. That's a
it's just about
possibility.
space,
Chris,
how
Or
much space
I just
it
think
is.
we need to
I
have
gotta
that
look at it
initial
first.
visit where we all can just look at it instead of
Yeah.
sitting here and talking about it.
And
Yeah, I gotta look at it.
the other space potential that we have, and again, I'm brainstorming, I'm not, like, this is not what I envision, but it's a possibility, is over at the Maple Street site, to have Sandy go over there. And the court advocate, I talked to Ryan Wood about that, and they don't necessarily have to, they can be anywhere, I mean.
Right, right. No, and it would be
And-
better to have them here in this building because they are part of the court. They're not part of Sandy's.
Current, yeah, but
people.
in some of the other counties, they're in Sandy's equivalent
Right,
space
right,
or office.
right.
Because again,
of
they're
the
not there
same
that
HIPAA
often.
requirements.
So the other thing that's changed with mental health is now, since the state took them over, you know, we did an agreement a few months ago. Part of that
Mhm.
is, and I'm going to check on this. They're supposed to reimburse us for space. The state is kind of like DHS.
Similar to what DHS does, yeah.
And then, see, and part of me is like, I would like to wait and see what's going to happen, because
What do you mean, wait and see
Well,
what's gonna happen?
public
The
health.
hospital's not gonna take us over.
No, no, no.
I'm just gonna throw that
But
out there.
I'm just gonna say,
They-
public health, you're in the same boat now as kind of mental health was, in that you're merging into the state.
They don't fund us.
Right.
They don't
But
fund
do you
us.
foresee that change? Well, I guess that's a legislative
No.
thing, so.
Yeah.
There-
it is.
We are a county department, just like Bart, just like
Right.
auditor, just like everybody else. There's no state money to sustain public health.
But
functions.
since public health is becoming part of the new Department of Health and Human
Yeah, but it's
Services,
not gonna change, Dee.
mental
We are
health.
county employees.
Right, okay, that's
We're
good, because
county
you probably
employees.
heard things at meetings and see, all I
Yeah,
know
we're-
is,
Yeah, we're county
Sandy,
employees.
Sandy and Leah are county employees that are paid for through state funds. And we're just the pass-through entity for their checks. And the
Right.
reason for that was so that they didn't lose benefits that they had built up over the years here,
Right,
being folded into the state government as state employees. And I can see something similar to that going on with public health, if they're wanting to start combining stuff with or through DHS.
Yeah, we'll see where that goes.
And-
I just
and that
wondered
kind
if
of
you'd heard
thing.
anything on that.
No.
But,
Okay.
And that I've not heard anything. I don't have any directive on that. We receive local public health dollars annually. That's about anywhere from $55,000 to $60,000. That's what we used to use to pay for direct service. That's why we no longer do direct service in home care, because in 5 years you can't use that money for that. So it's like for my time or staff time. But there's been zero talk of regional, of if we were to go regional, if we were to go quad county, tri-county, dual county, there's been no talk about funding. That's going to have to come from county supervisors working together and figuring out what that looks like. And then you have a regional board of health. So there's a lot of stuff going on. No, I think the reason we saw that disaster within mental health is because they screwed it up from the very beginning, and I don't have time to get into that. That's not my battle.
no,
It
and
should
that's
never
not
got
what we're
changed to
talking
regional
about here.
service.
So,
But to answer your question, no. Yes, we're under the umbrella, but so is all the other departments that used to be separate.
Okay. So as far as mental health offices, Sandy is currently the only one that's left in the courthouse. All the others are like in an office building somewhere.
mhm.
And so through all these transitions since regionalization in 2014, a lot has changed in that world. So it's possible that they could either go over to Maple Street or possibly this other building, depending. So
How big is the building? We keep talking about?
2,500 square feet.
Yeah, that's not, that's like
Maybe we'll
half.
get a
of what
look
we-
at it someday.
I hope I get to.
Why don't you just take her out there sometime?
Well, I want to get the plans back from the architects so that we can look those over at the same time we're out there. And
We do
yes,
think
what
that'll
is
be-
existing out there is 2,500 square
Yeah,
feet,
that's-
a little over.
It's-
But there are those 4 bays that can be enclosed right there that's going to bring you to the 4,800 or higher square footage. And that includes using just one portion of it for file storage that we were just talking about a little bit ago. Plus, it also lends itself for a drive-by, drop-off, pickup. There's also parking on the back side of the building. There are 2 entrances into the building from 2 different locations. And with some remodeling in there, you'll still be able to use both of those. You have 2 restrooms right now. You have 1 room that has a separate sink in it, and another room could be built beside it that also connects into that same sink setup, so that you can have 2 exam rooms with 2 sinks, 1 in each room, that kind of thing. There's also location out there where a backup generation system can be placed. And we need to look into whether backup generation can be done through a solar battery setup, or if it has to be a diesel generator that sits and runs beside the building to do it. The generator in the building over here would only be necessary for you from here on into the future, so that the county would have to take over the full responsibility for the long-term maintenance and upgrade if ever needed, because the fire station will no longer be there and the city wouldn't have any reason for having backup generation to the whole building other than with public health. So those are things that are out there that need to be known, that they need to be looked at. But again, there's a lot of potential in that bank building over there compared to many of the other buildings that we looked at, just from the standpoint that it is completely handicap accessible and can remain that way without having to do major modifications in order to bring it up to
I
that
guess-
standard.
Yeah,
Well, and
Darren, I think we
I
should make
guess-
a time to go out there with Chris and actually visualize
yeah,
that.
just because
For
you
her
guys
to
think that it's
visualize it.
gonna work for me, doesn't mean I'm gonna think it's gonna work for me, or that it's really gonna work for the department. It's not about me, it's about
But
looking
the
at
other,
it as
the
a
other 2
Yeah.
buildings that we
space
went and
issue.
looked at, I remember and recall when we were going through them, that, boy, everything worked out. It looked like it was gonna be great, fantastic. And, driving around to the backside of the building to have access to the basement over at the Farm Bureau building was not really ballad type idea, and the only handicap accessible way to get to the basement was to go around to the back of the building.
Right.
And so the bank building over here on the corner, Iowa State Bank building, had only one handicap accessible entrance, which was on the front. There's no adequate parking anywhere around that building.
Right.
There is an elevator inside of it to be able to have access to the basement area, but
There
you
wasn't
would
an
have to
elevator.
do.
It was not conducive for what we needed, let's
It
be honest.
didn't work, so we
And
moved on
We
from
moved
that.
past that.
We
The
moved
occupants
past,
in
no.
that building
So,
didn't want to leave.
Sounds like the next
Yeah.
step is just.
I just
look-
want to look at it.
Let her go look at it. I don't think we need the plans to look at it, because I've said, I want to see the least amount of remodeling, and it seems.
That's exactly what I don't want to spend a bunch of money as a
Exactly.
taxpayer. Okay,
Exactly.
let's cut to the chase. We want to be cost
agree.
effective. We want it to be functional. I don't want it to be crappy for anybody. It's like using your own money to remodel, but I gotta put my eyeballs on the inside of it. I'm not gonna tell Bart how to run a jail.
Chris, I totally understand that. I think we should do
Well,
that.
thanks for that.
He's not gonna tell me how to run
Yeah.
public health.
And I'm not gonna say that. I think it's good that we hopefully can go do this with you. Because,
It's very
not that
frustrating.
I have no issues with the city, but
I don't have any issues with them either.
administrations change, things change, okay?
Believe me, I know.
But this way, we're very secure. If
We
this
would
works
be
out.
happy if you could stay where you are. That would be
I
our
would be
number
very
one
happy to stay where I'm at.
option.
If the directive of this board is for me to work on a 2080 agreement, I've had conversations with the city administrator, with the mayor. I mean, even if it's a 2080 agreement for 3 years, that's better than what we have now. We got nothing.
I'm guessing that's probably a question for Chauncey and Pat
Mhm.
to see. So why don't you ask them if your Board of Health can do that? I know you mentioned.
They
that
can enter into a 2080
As-
agreement. I asked that question.
Okay, well then, that's up to you and your Board of Health,
Well, yes,
if
it
you
is.
would want to do that. But that's,
But again, it
But
comes
again,
back to
we
the
bought this
supervisors. We
building.
bought the
I would like to
building.
go look at it with you.
I would too.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't cost anything. It's like living in a car. You drive through the lot.
Exactly.
No, we're gonna get out and go in.
Well, I've been in it, like when I used to bank at First National, but that's been pre-COVID years ago. I don't bank there.
the
anymore.
offices over there are pretty large.
The room for
Yeah, I
that.
can't.
Well,
confirm
and
or deny anything.
none of it's soundproof, so you would have to soundproof walls when they're put in. And right now, every wall that's in that building could be removed and new walls put in without having any structural integrity to the building
Right.
compromised.
But if the offices work the way they are, which I think they might, I'm not sure. You don't have soundproof offices now, do you?
No,
I mean,
no,
it's not like you're seeing clients in your office, like
it's not like.
you're
it's
on
not
the
like
phone doing your private
we are.
work. and
We
you're
are,
not
and we shut the
screaming
door and
when-
it's mumbling.
Yeah, no. And
It's mumbled.
I don't know that you need a soundproof.
So Darren,
Again,
can we set up a time to
Yeah.
just go look at this?
Let's just
Sure.
go Monday after our meeting,
Monday is
if our
when?
agenda's not a mile long.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean.
I don't know. I haven't seen a lot come through the agenda. I got it.
You
Okay.
Note from you.
you don't know it's election season.
Yeah,
I don't know off the
Which
top of my head.
I was gonna bring out more,
Yeah,
a
okay,
third person.
okay.
I don't know if it's appropriate now,
Well,
does it have to do with
You got
space planning?
we're not making.
As long
any
as it's on
decisions
space
here at all
planning.
today.
What's that? No, it has to do with Monday's agenda.
Oh, well, that's for
Yeah.
Abby
Yeah,
and
he
Darren.
sent a message to me and I
Sure.
forwarded it on to Abby.
Let's focus on space.
So that's space planning.
All right,
Yep.
so Monday, space planning.
So,
That sounds like
Um,
any other, the thing I know about mental health is if we're gonna move Sandy, we need a 6-month notice to seal. So keep that in mind. That was it's part of the,
I'm pretty sure
I'm gonna be
if
quiet.
where we
on that.
end
They
up,
have
there's
nothing to do
a.
with it.
no,
I think we
I
have
said
plenty of
Sandy,
time for
not
that.
you.
No, but I mean, Seal
Seal-
has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it's the region and the region,
They're not doing squat though. It's all taken over by the state, right?
no, the region's still,
no, the region is still in place.
Very
It's just the
operational.
funding has changed.
it's just the
On
funding
how
stream
things
has,
work.
Reason that the state's taking it over.
because
Don't even, I know how it works. It doesn't.
Anyway,
doesn't work for the patients that need the mental health service. That's what I'm gonna say about that.
just tell them to call Optimate or go to the hospital.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, so I'm all
So
about it.
back
Monday
to-
works for
Back
me.
to space, over at Maple Street, and I've talked to David Rippey as well as his supervisor about different things that have gone on. We rented a space to Public Defender over there, but now there is concerns. We still have not seen a public defender be hired to come down to this area. And
You
for
know,
right now, they don't have any perspective on who they would do that. But we have a contract in place where they rent one small room over there
right,
for $120 a year, but they're supposed to be paying for phone line to come into it, being installed and taken care of. And also any office furniture, computers, whatever that person needs, they're going to be paying for it. But here runs the problem. The DHS has expressed that some of their clients would also be clients of Public Defender's Office or would be plaintiffs against them through the Public Defender's Office. And whether that's a good fit for that location or not is still up in the air.
I think that is a
And-
question for Chauncey and Pat.
That is. And then the entrance into the building and exit out of the building would go through some of DHS's portion of the building. There's no separate entrance to be able to get to
Nobody's
there.
there anyway.
Well, there's 3 people that are there, 5 total. There's 3
Yeah, and why
that
do
are
they
there
need
in
that
their
much
offices.
space?
Well, that's what the state says. We could do away with that, but then we lose a good chunk of funding for the building over there. And we also fund to the tune of about $64,000
No, I
a
know,
year.
that's mandatory.
That's mandatory from the state for them to be in this building.
But if they were in a smaller space, I don't think that would affect that.
No.
Let's throw a wrench into it. Okay, we need one building that houses all of health and human services, mental health, public health. That's what we need.
Can
Can you come up with?
you theoretically, if we came up with space
Couple
over
million.
at Maple Street, since it used to be a clinic, would that be?
I've been in that building as it is now. And again, it's confidentiality issues.
Right,
And it doesn't flow like it needs to flow for a clinic. I mean, it doesn't, it's so chopped up since it's gotten remodeled that there might have to be some work done to it.
the only thing that I think might reasonably work would be the Pathfinder's office and Troy Sealy's, that whole segment, because see, Pathfinders has, it's either 4 or 5 offices, but then you get into the same thing. There's no elevator
Yep,
and the conference room is downstairs,
I know.
because I go there for Pathfinders
Mhm.
meetings.
yep, I know.
And in today's world, you have to have an elevator, and that's the main reason we got that building that we got.
Yeah, and we have to as well. We have to be ADA compliant for every,
I know.
you know, so it's not,
But I just want everyone to understand, we have researched this. We didn't just wake up one morning and decide to go out and get that building. It's handicapped accessibility,
No,
handicapped
and a lot of this
accessibility.
started from your drive with us. When I say drive, your passion with us, that building didn't work. We need to get a different facility. You talked to Rob Sand about use of COVID and American Rescue money, and had a note forwarded from him to us about being able to use this money for that particular
What are you
issue.
talking about?
I don't think I ever said the building didn't work per se. I think it was because,
You know, you guys, that's in the past. We need to be
Yeah.
positive and go
No, I'm,
forward.
I'm not, but I'm
I just
I'm
want to see the damn
saying
building.
Yeah.
I want to see the
Monday,
inside of
Chris,
the building.
Monday.
Thank you. What time are we gonna go? Do
Whenever,
you want to
we're-
go before the supervisors
7 a.m.
meeting?
okay?
I can meet you at 7. Hell yes, I can meet you at 7.
we don't need to go, we don't need an hour and a half there.
Susie
we
said
might.
7.
How about 7:45?
That works.
That's long enough. We don't need it for, I mean, it's not that hard to walk through that building.
Yeah, but we gotta talk about it.
You can talk about it back here at the
So
meeting.
7:30?
7:45. Does that work from somebody? Because somebody from your office will need to be there.
Probably not. We gotta move it.
I think Abby's in the middle election cycle. We should maybe make a,
We can meet after the meeting. I don't care. I just
I
want
mean,
to
you've
see. the
done
building.
other, you do road tours without us going,
No, that's true.
Yeah,
okay.
so.
This isn't a meeting, it's a building tour.
we
You're
try
right.
to buy-
Ran it by Pat, but you're right. Same thing.
I didn't go when we had a closed session, and we went and looked at one of those buildings.
Yeah.
Go and look at this building.
Well, this is an
and I-
open.
Yeah, we didn't. Nobody went with us when we went to the
It's
other.
not a meeting.
Building.
It's a tour. We're not gonna decide anything there.
no, that's
No,
right.
I just want to look
Okay,
at it
so
and see the space.
What time on Monday?
7:45, First National Bank Building.
Okay,
Building tour.
okay.
We've had other building tours because we had it on our agenda
Yep,
for your place.
we did.
Okay,
Anything that else that you need from me, as far as, I mean, you pretty much know what we pay for, garbage, all that stuff. I think the biggest expenses would be the generator.
how big is the generator? Well, depending on the building.
$15,000.
At least, probably. I mean, we'd have to see. We might not need as big a one as what we had, because we've got it, you know, but
Right.
it still has to power half your stuff in a
Right.
disaster, you know, that's why you have
We
generators.
recently purchased one for the tower, communications tower.
Yeah.
We had to replace it. So it was just, it was under 10,000, but then, of course, then there's work installing it. so.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I haven't seen that bill yet, but yeah.
Yeah,
it's
you're
gonna be
talking 15 grand area.
15 or below, yeah.
If you're not
Well, for that, for
charging
the size we
full
bought.
bill. Right. And if you're talking about just making sure that you have minimal lights and you have cold storage that can be kept going, so things don't thaw out or things don't heat up and then get ruined. You're talking in the same amount of generation power as what you're getting out there at the radio tower.
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, that has to
Keeps
keep
things-
everything going on.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. it's
And
not-
then obviously the generator we have at the law center is a lot bigger. I don't know what it would cost to replace that one.
oh,
Yeah, we don't
probably
need
it's
something.
100,000 or
Yeah.
something like that, because you gotta have power in the jail, because you got electronic doors and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff
Yeah.
that lock.
We don't need that.
So the first step is letting you look with us at that building.
Yeah. Monday, 7:45. Anything else you need from me?
No, but I think, the space in there flows, you'll see, will flow. And it's, there's square feet and there's square feet, but a lot of it's how it's laid out.
Absolutely.
And,
And building an internal storage area with appropriate shelving or whatever, that makes a huge difference too. Because
Mhm.
the CCNCs have a ton of stuff that they use, the child careers consultants. I mean,
what kinds of
For
things
car-
do they need to
oh
store?
geez, that, car seats, records, diapers, wipes. It depends if we are doing a diaper drive and we end up having to store all that stuff.
Okay.
Just that kind of stuff. Car seats take up a lot of space for training. We don't hand out
Can
car
we store
seats,
diapers
but-
in here?
yeah. Diapers take up a lot of space.
No, they do.
Wipes aren't so bad, but diapers take up a lot of
Yes.
space.
So when they
And we can't
do,
put them in the basement.
no,
you
when
know.
they do a drive like that, how long do they have them that they need the space?
Well, we didn't do one the last couple of years because of the pandemic, and then CETA was doing one, so we didn't want to be in competition. So Hy-Vee did it with us, and we had diapers and wipes for a year because Hy-Vee matched the donations.
That's a good situation.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome, but there was a lot of storage that was needed.
And who are the people that receive?
We
the
didn't have
diapers?
any, Hy-Vee didn't have any criteria. We didn't have any criteria. If you needed diapers or wipes, come, we'll give them to you. Now, there was a couple cases where the same people kept coming. So
Right.
we had to just say, hey, we can help you out this week, but you can't keep coming weekly to get your diaper supply. So we didn't have a policy, you didn't have to meet criteria like the works
Okay.
covered or anything, but
Mhm.
I anticipate that need is gonna get worse,
Right.
especially with the expense of everything.
And then Tell us about the car seats. Like how many, do you have some on hand then?
No, we don't. There is a program that we can participate in to hand out to distribute car seats. I
Okay.
checked with our insurance and I checked with the county attorney, Pat, and if you're the last one to touch it, you own it, man. And I don't feel that we as a county department should be distributing car seats at no fee, because I think
Right.
it sends the wrong message.
Right.
Because then they think they can come back and get the next size car seat or the next size car seat. We're happy to do the education and the training on the correct car seat and but to hand them out, there's got to be a better way. That needs to come from a nonprofit organization,
Yeah,
not a
so
health
you,
department.
you don't need a,
We don't need
storage
storage
for
for car
those.
seats.
So the
We
main
have
thing is
car seats
diapers
for
and
training purposes, like
Okay.
Tammy will show incorrect car seats and correct car seats, but they're not to be used. I mean, I think they're actually expired car seats, so they couldn't be used anyway, because car seats have a date on them as well. So they do expire.
Yeah,
And then if
it's
you're
like
in,
any plastic type stuff.
yeah, there's a date on them.
That
They
gets
expire.
exposed to the sun. It's bike helmets, motorcycle helmets. All of those things have expiration dates on them as far as safety, integrity are
Interesting.
concerned. And you can't sell somebody like my daughter who has got soon to have 3 car seats versus the 2 that she currently has. She can't sell an old one if it's at or expired on the date to anybody. She's either got to get rid of it or throw it away.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Glad I don't have kids
And if your
anymore.
car seat's been in an accident, you need to get rid of it and get a new one, just like a helmet.
yeah, exactly. Just like a motorcycle.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have my kids, but they're
Been
grown.
in an
Yeah.
All right.
Your head, it's gotta
Hey,
go.
thank you.
Is there anything, yeah,
No,
No.
just, I
thank
think
you.
you just need to see it.
Yeah, I do. That'll alleviate a lot of stress for a lot of people. And then we can take that and move forward and go whatever. I mean,
And again, you still have to talk to Pat and see if you can get a 2080 with
Well,
the city, that'd be great.
well, I need directive from you guys because as you know, right now, there's no money that exchanges hands. But if that would come to fruition and we would have to pay rent, I know Washington County had to pay rent, they still pay rent at their bank building location. Then that comes from my budget that's approved by you guys, so it's a trickle down, so
Well, I think
we need to
what-
just figure it out.
I think that'd be step 2.
It
Step
would
1 is
be.
to look at the building.
Yeah, it would be step 2 or 3, actually.
job.
It would be step 2 or step 3. I just need directive. So it'd be nice to have a report to go back to the Board of Health for our 17th meeting of November. That way they can.
I was gonna say you met 17 times.
No, the 17th of November meeting. So
Alright.
anything else you guys can
No,
think of?
thank you.
Yeah,
No.
thanks for your
Sorry
time.
for
We'll
coming.
think of something that won't be legal.
What's that?
Thank you for
That's all
coming.
right.
Yeah.
That's all right.
No, thank you.
Thanks. I'm gonna go vote, I hope.
All
Aw,
right.
That means Chris will be here
And one
for
other thing, if you're
see you
done.
guys.
Yeah, we need
Do you
to,
need a motion to adjourn?
the.
No, you can adjourn. I'll just mention it.
Oh, okay, okay.
is it space related?
No,
No, okay.
I'll let you close.
So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I have a
Second.
motion from
Yes.
Sandquist, a second from Drish. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.